How to use your single routing method. The following tutorial is created to help you troubleshoot in case you use your single routing method and it does not work while connecting between two entities. There are a variety of options you need to pay attention to and set your PractiCAD on top of make sure that you are drawing correctly in order for the duct to snap between two places. The first thing you must look for is to make sure that when you attach duct, you always have your O snaps on. If I do not have O snaps on, when I go to grab a transition, I will be unable to even snap to the duct that I'd like to attach to. So I've always got to make sure that O snap is on. I can get that on by hitting F3, which will toggle it on, or you can just come right here and press it and turn it on when you need it. Once your snaps are on, you should be able to snap directly to one fitting. And then, of course, by hitting I and spacebar to switch it to the single method, notice that I've got it on single now. I can now come over and easily attach to the other fitting. However, there are multiple cases where you might not be able to attach duct between two fittings based on a variety of parameters. The easiest solution, the first thing to look for whenever your duct does not attach between 2 points, is to make sure that you drew your in and out connections correctly. For example, up top here you can see that when I click on the duct, I have a blue arrow indicating the out joint or airflow of this fitting. If I actually go to click on this fitting, I have the out joint pointing in this direction. So if I go to attach a transition, I am not attaching the in to the out. I'm trying to attach the out to the out. And there are options in PractiCAD in other tutorials that prevent you from allowing to attach duct out to out. So in this particular situation, you would not be able to attach it. The other reasons are either A, your offset to width parameters are not set high enough. B, the length of your fitting you're trying to route with is larger than the gap it's trying to cover. Or C, you're using the wrong fitting or you don't have it rotated correctly. So first we're going to go over the explanation of offset to width parameters. PractiCAD gives you the ability to attach a single fitting in between two entities. However, you must make sure that some of your PractiCAD settings are set to allow for this. PractiCAD has the ability to prevent you from putting fittings on the drawing that might choke. For example, currently I have a piece of duct that's 24 by 24, bottom at 10 foot. And I want to attach it to another piece of duct that's 24 by 24, bottom at 13 foot. Now notice here that we have dimensioned the offset width. The offset width is 3 feet from this center line to this center line. I'm going to come up here and grab a transition. I'm going to move over to my box, check single, and now what we're going to do is bring my transition to the first piece. When I click, you'll notice that it snaps to the first piece. Now, I'm now going to bring my cursor up to the next fitting, but notice that it's not attaching. The reason why it's not attaching is because my offset to width parameters or my offset to depth parameters, the ratios are not set high enough. To change the settings, you must go into your auto duct icon on your PractiCAD ribbon, the auto duct icon. I'm going to click on it once. Now, though there are numerous tutorials on this section, this tutorial is only to explain the importance of the offset width and depth parameters. Notice here when I'm routing single wall duct rectangular that PractiCAD is giving me a list of different parameters which are dictating the route I'm trying to make. Whenever we go to make a route in PractiCAD, whether it's exact, smart, any one of these routes, it's taking the parameters and choices from this auto duct section. Notice that we've got sizing and offset. Sizing is used for difference between transitions. Usually it's only a size change. Usually the center line of one duct and the center line of another duct are lined up. However, one duct is smaller or larger, so that's a size change. Here what we've got in this tutorial is an offset change. Notice when we click on offset that we have our maximal offset to width ratio set at 0 and 0. This actually means that we are not allowed to make a transition offset at all. What we're going to do first is set the maximal offset to width ratio and the offset to depth ratio to 1 and 1. Notice that it's offset over width and offset over depth. I'm now going to press OK. Here you can see that the offset is 3 feet. And the width of the fitting that I'm trying to connect to is 2 feet. So if we were to take our calculator and we were to do the math, 36 for 3 foot, and divide it by 24 for 2 foot for offset width ratio, you'll see that the number is 1.5. This means that the ratio I set in my auto duct is actually too low. So if I go to grab this transition and snap to one, then try to bring it to the other, it does not attach. So if we come back into our auto duct button and change these parameters, we're going to go into routing, single wall, rectangular. Recognize that you have round and oval here. We're going to go into offset, and where it says offset to width, we need to make it at least higher than 1.5. Now my recommendation is to leave these numbers high. At all times, it's better usually to just have PractiCAD attached between the two fittings at any offset and then to edit it later. The recommended settings are to keep this number at a minimum of 8 and 8 or 10 and 10. That'll usually make sure that no matter what, no matter how great the difference is in height or how great the difference is in the X or Y plane in terms of width, it's always going to connect the transition. So I'm going to set maximal offset to width and depth ratio to 8 and 8. It is also recommended underneath sizing to do the same. Here you can see under sizing we have it at 1 and 1. That's only going to allow for a very small offset. We're going to change it to 8 and 8. I try to leave these settings in place at all times. The first thing we check if we cannot attach a duct using the single method is the offset to width and depth ratios. So we're going to exit out, and now we've got them set high. Now we're going to go back and grab the transition out of the fitting bin. We're going to snap to our first point, and now notice that the second we bring it to the other point, it will connect. Because we changed the offset to width ratio, which is 3 foot, over the width of the fitting we're attaching to, so 3 foot over 2 foot. And of course you have the offset depth ratio as well. Notice the difference between this duct being at 10 foot and this duct being at 13 foot. The offset depth is 3 foot. And if you put 3 foot over the depth of the fitting we're connecting to, it'd be 3 foot over 2 foot. So in other words, we need to have our offset to width ratio, as we showed with our calculator, at least greater than 1.5. Once again, generally leave those settings very high. It'll allow you to attach any two fittings between large distances, and then from there we can always double click on the fitting itself and then go into our editing options if we need to. That is the explanation on the offset to width and depth parameters. Another reason why your duct might not connect when you're trying to work on single is the fitting you are holding could be longer than the gap you're trying to cross. For example, in this tutorial we have two pieces of duct. One is at bottom 10 foot, and 3 feet away we have another one at bottom 11 foot. So there's 36 inches between them. I come up to the fitting bin and I select a transition. Here we'll use the finished length transition. I go to click onto the first joint and PractiCAD snaps correctly to it. However, when I go to the second joint, PractiCAD does not attach. The reason why is the fitting I'm holding, as you can see here, is larger than the gap we're trying to cross. You'll notice that I had saved the transition as a default with the length at 48. Therefore, PractiCAD is actually trying to connect to the next nearest point, which would be after this node here. All we need to do if this situation happens is lower our length with the wheel mouse, just so it's shorter than the gap, and then attach. And PractiCAD will attach it easily. Another tip when routing with single is to make sure that the fitting you're actually trying to attach between 2 points is capable and has the proper properties to attach between the 2 points. In this example, we've got a fitting on the left at 10 foot and we have a fitting on the right at 12 foot. Their center lines are even, so the only difference is the elevation change. The fitting we're going to try to attach with is going to be the finished length extra straight transition. I'm going to click on it once. Now I'm going to click on my first attachment point and I click once. Then I'm going to bring it over to try to attach to my second attachment point, and you can already see that PractiCAD is not allowing us to attach this fitting. The offset to width parameters are already high and have been set properly. You'll notice that the length of this fitting is shorter than the gap. So what would prevent it from not attaching? Well, this particular fitting has an offset center, but it does not have a center change. In PractiCAD, offset center dictates the offset left to right, and center change dictates the offset up and down. And because I've already attached this fitting to move left to right, it doesn't have the ability to break twice. So though I can move the parameters here up and down to offset it left and right, it will not break up. However, to make the fitting break up, you're always capable of going into your direction box, rotating the duct at 90 degrees, and then you can attach the fitting and PractiCAD will fill it in with the proper offset center. Also note that some fittings have 2 offsets. We're going to use the finished length double transition offset. This fitting has 2 offset parameters. First, we have the offset parameter for offset center here, which is left to right. And then we also have the parameter for center change, which breaks it up and down. So this fitting can be broken both ways. However, it's normal to have the OG portion of the fitting in an elevation change such as here. The OG portion of the fitting is usually the top and bottom of this duct. So what we would do is we would come in, we would snap our OG transition to one side, we'd make sure that the length is shorter than the gap, and then we'd rotate it 90 degrees. Once we do that, we'd be able to snap to the endpoint node and PractiCAD would attach the OG, and of course it now has the curved portion, the OG portion, at the top and bottom. So this is very important to look towards when you go to attach duct. This is also a great exercise to attempt yourself.